Detecting the Scam. This book focuses on about 3 big major scams, what they all have in common, and how what you learned from Nelson Mandela.
That's the interesting part of it,
yes.
Really, the Nelson Mandela
the tie-in.
The tie-in, because you say the tie-in.
How do you explain that? Because I've tried to explain it to people, and I go, I can't explain it. You have to read the book, because it's brilliant.
Okay. I start with the premise that a scam is a negotiating duel between the scammer and his mark. Because what's happening is the scammer is trying to persuade you to do something or not do something. I'm sorry your friend Felon isn't here, because with a hardened criminal, if somebody stops you on the street, sticks a gun in your face and says, I want your wallet, you don't have a choice. You either give him the wallet. He may be very unhappy when he sees what's in the wallet.
Especially if he gets me.
That's the direct approach, as opposed to the scam approach. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The issue with the scam is you have a choice. You don't have to give the scammer anything. You don't have to do anything. So it's a negotiating duel. The scammer has to persuade you to do something or another. So when it comes to persuasion, what I did is I said, who's the greatest negotiator that I've seen in action in recent memory? And it was Nelson Mandela. I mean, he couldn't have had a tougher negotiation than to negotiate with the people that he was talking to. So I thought, if we're going to learn from somebody, why not learn from the best? So I looked at Mandela, and I looked at, I extrapolated, if you like, 10 powers of negotiation that he demonstrated. And what was really, really interesting about that is that there's the power of the process, which is the typical thing that business schools and law schools teach. But there was a lot of non-technical stuff, like the power of dignity, the power of humility, the power of humor. There was a lot of stuff, and basically what he was able to do was combine all of these powers and keep his eye on the ball. So what I was saying here is, just imagine, I mean, what if the people who were advising the scam companies had been sensitive to what Mandela had taught us? What if any of the leaders had moral authority and the people following them knew that it just wouldn't be acceptable to do the kind of stuff that they're doing? You know, maybe they wouldn't have done it. And then the other thing which just really struck me was that the schools, in my mind, are the villains in all of this. There's a really interesting statistic that says that the percentage of people that cheat in the workforce is approximately the same percentage of students who teach at school.
Cheat or teach?
It's a wonderful analogy. No, who cheat. No, that's an absolute statistic.
Who teach at school or cheat at school?
Cheat.
Cheat. Okay.
Yeah, who cheat at school. So what happens is you have this new generation of leaders that are coming in who have spent their lives cheating. They cheat at high school, they cheat at college, they cheat at postgraduate school. And who the hell believes they're not going to continue cheating when they get into the workforce? So what are the schools doing? They're taking surveys, and they've discovered that business students cheat more than any other kind of students. Point one. When they did surveys, they found that sometimes 80 to 95% of students enrolled in those classes cheat.
Ooh.
Wow.
So in a recent survey, the deans were asked what their perception of student cheating was. And they thought that only 40% of the students cheated. Now, this is only 40%.
Only almost half.
Of the deans that were surveyed, only, I think, 6% thought it was a serious problem. Okay? So if the deans don't stamp out cheating, then I think what's going to happen is we're destined to have generations of cheating students being let loose into the workforce.
I went to the University of Illinois, and our fraternity house was very famous for its test files. They had files going back 20 years of every test given on every subject, and that's how we prepped for a lot of the exams.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. The same percentage.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So what happened when you talk about integrity and moral? What do they have to do to watch out for the scammer? How do you become aware? Because, as you say, it's we believe what we want to hear, and we believe it really in our hearts, and it's really hard to outthink that desire.
Well, Don hit the nail on the head as we started, because I was just laughing as he was saying it, because I spent I don't know how long doing this book, And what he said encapsulated the whole book. Okay? When he said, it was a great Groucho Marx quote that says, "Who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes?" And that's what a scam is. That's exactly what a scam is. Okay, exactly.
And they also try to give you no room to negotiate. I got a great deal for you, but you got to grab it now.
Oh, yeah, the exaggerated sense of urgency.
No, we'll get into that in a second. But to answer Shadoe's question, the conclusion that I reached is that what makes the modern scammer different to the old-time scammer is that the old-time scammer, like Carlo Ponzi, for example, was a dishwasher. Okay? He was on the fringes of society. Today's scammers are the pillars of society. Okay, they're the real McCoy. I mean, Ken Lay was a friend of the president's. Okay, and what happens is that for too long we've been trusting these surrogates way too much. So the answer to your question is, what can we do? Is I think we have to trust them less, and we have to trust ourselves more. So I think it was Warren Buffett or somebody who once said that he won't invest in anything if he doesn't understand it. Mm-hmm. Well, it should be the same for us. You know, I've told clients over the years, I'm sure you have, Don, is that if I explain something to a client and they don't understand, it doesn't mean they're dumb. It just means I can't explain it. And they should then move on to somebody else who can explain it. Is that unless somebody can explain to you exactly how it works, you've got to move on to somebody who can explain to you how it works.
And what about the guys who say, let's leave the lawyers out of this?
Yeah, well, look, the lawyers are the surrogates.
Yeah.
So, what happens is, I was telling Shadoe the other day that you've come very close to the nerve by the response you get to the questions that you ask. So invariably, if you ask a question that's a little too close to the bone, the response will be abusive. They will say to you, you don't know what you're talking about. Have you ever done this before? The favorite thing I used to get was, in America, we don't do things like that.
Oh, yeah.
we do things under the table here.
Yeah, maybe different in South Africa.
That's right, yeah. How can you ask that kind of question? But at the end of the day, it's all about asking questions. I mean, it really is. And if these guys can't answer the questions, you've got to move on. You just got to move on.
I had a very, very pointed and amazing experience with the exact thing you're talking about, taking the deposition of a guy named Esri Namvar, who was involved in investing millions and millions of dollars of the Jewish Iranian community. Except that what would happen is somebody, and he would only take big money. He would take, as an example, $3 million, and you would get a promissory note. But, as he put it, only Americans would ask for security.
Yeah.
Only 80% of his investors had no security. 20%, and those were the Americans that wanted security. Yeah. He's now been indicted, and he's in bankruptcy court. And all the money, and I'm talking about the entire community, I'm talking almost must be $1 billion gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's one point that you bring up about, you bring up several about Nelson Mandela, but one that I thought was significant, especially right off the get-go, was that looking at the negotiation from the perspective of the other person and not starting off your negotiation with, you're an idiot.
That's exactly right.
When he sat down to meet with the leaders of government who wanted to make a fool of him, the first thing he did was something to the effect of, I know how difficult this has been for you. I know what you guys have gone through.
That's exactly right.
And except in the context of scams, I'm quoting you, the best negotiators respect an honest discussion of different views. They respect logic and reason.
That's exactly right. There's a great anecdote in the book which demonstrates exactly that. The South African government was terrified about the Communist Party. And they were terrified about the fact that Mandela would be influenced by the Communist Party, which were not predominantly black. They were coloreds and whites in the South African Communist Party. So this delegation from the government came to talk to Mandela and explained that they wouldn't negotiate with him unless he denounced the Communist Party. And he said, I won't. And they said, well, these guys are going to influence you. And he said to them, look, you guys are 4 very distinguished Afrikaners, very conservative, very smart. There are 4 of you and 1 of me. What makes you think that these colored folks in the Communist Party are going to succeed where you failed?
Logic.
Great logic. We're going to take a short 60-second break. We'll be right back. Detecting the Scam.